The scent of rosemary chicken and garlic mashed potatoes still lingered in the air, but the kitchen at Label Pack was almost silent now, except for the faint hum of the walk-in fridge and the soft, stifled sobs coming from behind the swinging metal door. Sophia Daniels clutched her phone like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her back was pressed against the tiled wall, her apron still stained with marinara from the dinner rush, and her knees were beginning to buckle. Her fingers trembled as her mother's voice echoed in her head. "They said it's spreading, honey. It's stage 4 now, liver, possibly bone." Sophia had tried to stay strong, nodding silently on the call, whispering reassurances she didn't believe. But when the line went dead and the weight of reality settled like cement in her chest, she couldn't hold it in anymore. Her father had died 3 years ago in a car accident that left them spiraling, financially, emotionally, and practically. Since then, Sophia had worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on and her younger siblings in school. She had dreams once: college, a career in social work, maybe starting her own nonprofit to help families like hers. Now, she barely had enough in the bank to cover groceries, let alone the new medications her mother's doctors recommended. She slid down to the floor, her body curled in on itself as tears slid silently down her face. Unbeknownst to her, someone was watching. Derek Caldwell leaned quietly against the doorway, just out of view. He hadn't meant to linger. He was just supposed to review the VIP lounge remodel proposal from the restaurant's owner, but then he heard the voice, raw, broken, human. He wasn't used to seeing raw emotion. In his world of mergers, acquisitions, and quarterly profits, feelings were liabilities. But something about the young woman crying into her phone in the back kitchen tugged at something long buried inside him. He didn't recognize her at first, just another overworked waitress in a city of millions. But when she stood to wipe her face and stepped into the light, he froze. Sophia Daniels. That name had crossed his desk before. Her father, Joseph Daniels, had worked for one of Caldwell's former competitors, Grayson Biotech, before it was gutted by Apex Global in a hostile takeover 5 years ago, the same Apex that had indirectly benefited Caldwell Industries. He remembered reading Joseph's case file in a wrongful termination claim Apex had quietly buried. A few hundred families lost their jobs that year. Sophia's was one of them. Derek stepped back quietly, his expression unreadable. Something shifted inside him, a decision forming. The next morning, Sophia was barely functioning. She hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, and her hands were on autopilot as she poured coffee for a table of tourists. The corners of her lips lifted into an exhausted smile that didn't reach her eyes. As she turned to refill a pot near the bar, she nearly walked right into him. Derek Caldwell, in a tailored charcoal coat and navy blue scarf, seated at table 5, the only one by the window, reserved for special guests. He looked completely out of place in the humble, family-owned restaurant. Too clean, too composed, too powerful. Sophia blinked in confusion. "Can I help you, sir?" He looked at her gently, and for a brief second, something in his voice softened. "Yes. You can sit down." She hesitated. "I'm working." "I know," he said, "but I promise, it's important. Just 5 minutes." Sophia glanced toward the counter. Her manager raised an eyebrow, then gave a small nod, probably assuming it was about a complaint. She sat, warily. Derek leaned forward. "I heard you last night." Sophia's body stiffened. "I wasn't eavesdropping on purpose," he added quickly. "But I was in the back reviewing floor plans and I heard, enough." Her throat tightened. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to—" "You don't need to apologize," he interrupted. "In fact, I should be the one saying sorry." She looked at him, confused. "I know who your father was. Joseph Daniels. I know what happened with Apex." Sophia's heart dropped. "I can't fix the past," Derek said, "but maybe I can help with the future." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small navy folder. Inside was an offer letter, a formal position at the Caldwell Foundation, program coordinator, full health benefits, a salary 4 times what she made now. "You want me to work for your charity?" I want you to lead something we're launching, a new initiative called Hope Rising. It's for families like yours. It's not charity, it's partnership, it's purpose." Sophia stared at the folder. Her hands shook. "What's the catch?" she asked quietly. Derek gave a half smile. "No catch. Just maybe a new beginning." The Caldwell estate looked less like a mansion and more like a piece of architectural fiction, something out of a magazine you only saw while waiting for a dentist appointment. Perched on the edge of Lake Michigan, the sprawling glass and stone structure shimmered in the late morning sun. Wide, sweeping windows revealed an interior filled with minimalist decor, curated artwork, and high ceilings that made you feel small the second you stepped inside. Sophia Daniels did not belong here. At least, that's what her nerves kept insisting as she stepped through the grand double doors the very next morning. She had second-guessed herself the entire cab ride over. Was this real? Or was she being set up for some cruel joke? Her mother, ever protective, had warned her over weak oatmeal and stronger pills. Don't let a rich man offer you the world and take your soul in return. But Sophia didn't feel sold. She felt unsettled. The moment she entered the main hallway, a soft-voiced woman greeted her. "Miss Daniels, I'm Meredith, Mr. Caldwell's assistant. He's expecting you upstairs." She followed Meredith past abstract sculptures and floor-to-ceiling bookcases until they reached a sleek glass office with an unobstructed view of the water. Derek stood at the window, hands in his pockets, looking out. "You came," he said without turning around. "I didn't think I had a choice," she replied honestly. That made him smile. Derek motioned to the chair across from his desk. "Let's get to it then." The meeting lasted over an hour. Derek laid out the blueprint of Hope Rising, a new wing of the Caldwell Foundation aimed at bridging gaps in healthcare and education for struggling families. But this wasn't just about funding shelters or writing checks. Derek wanted Sophia to help build community networks, partnerships with clinics, food banks, schools, real systems that lasted. Sophia's head spun. "I have no degree," she reminded him. "You have lived experience," Derek replied. "That matters more to me." His confidence was unnerving. Still, she couldn't help feeling pulled into the vision. When he walked her down the hallway to show her temporary office space, he paused in front of a portrait. "This was Claire," he said quietly. Sophia studied the photo, a young woman with bright eyes and wild curls. "My sister," Derek added. "She died 6 years ago, complications from a bad diagnosis. We found out too late. The clinic she went to had its funding cut by Apex Global, one of many." Sophia blinked. So it wasn't just business for him, it was personal. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Sophia moved like someone pulled between two worlds. By day, she was in meetings, mapping logistics, talking with case managers, and even designing flyers for the launch of Hope Rising. By night, she was back in her small apartment, making soup from scratch and helping her little brother Lucas finish his math homework. She didn't tell many people about the job at first. Her mother was skeptical. Mia, her 16-year-old sister, thought it was sketchy. And Lucas just wanted to know if Mr. Caldwell had a pool. He did, and a private chef, and a media room, and a library bigger than their entire apartment. But for all the luxury, Sophia remained focused. This wasn't about the perks. This was about the chance to finally help someone, really help them. She had been on the receiving end of need for so long, now she got to be part of the solution. Or so she thought. One evening, while reviewing vendor invoices for a Hope Rising partner clinic, Sophia noticed something odd. A line item labeled Operational Consulting via Apex Holdings, $67,000. She frowned. Apex? Was it a coincidence? A different company with a similar name? But the logo in the header confirmed it. Apex Global. The same company that ruined her father. The same company Derek said he hated. The same company he claimed to be destroying. Sophia leaned back slowly, the edges of her excitement beginning to blur. Something didn't feel right. It started with a spreadsheet. Sophia had never considered herself particularly good with numbers. In high school, she'd nearly flunked Algebra 2, but something about this invoice gnawed at her in a way she couldn't ignore. She sat alone in the Caldwell Foundation's finance office late that night, the rest of the staff long gone. The hum of the air vents was the only sound as she combed through line after line of expense data for Hope Rising's pilot program. And there it was again. Apex Global Holdings, consulting, logistics, strategic development, not once, not twice, 7 times. Over $400,000 in payments, all recent, all buried under vague service descriptions. Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she clicked through the vendor registration documents. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a coincidence. The foundation, her program, was working with the same corporation that had destroyed her father's livelihood. She swallowed hard. Why? Was Derek lying from the start? Was Hope Rising just another glossy PR stunt for a billionaire trying to polish a tarnished name? She stood and paced, heart pounding. Memories flooded in. Her mother scraping together coins for medication, her father's voice cracking as he told her he couldn't afford college. The nights they went to bed with cereal for dinner and prayed the lights wouldn't go out. Apex had been the villain in her family's story for years. Derek had claimed he hated them too. But now he was funneling money into them. The next morning, Sophia requested a meeting with Derek. His assistant gave her a strange look. He's been out most of the morning. Meeting with Apex executives, actually. Sophia froze, so he wasn't hiding it. He was just not talking about it. She didn't wait. She went straight to the elevator and up to the top floor, his private office. Derek was there, standing by the window with a drink in hand as if he'd been waiting for her. "You found it," he said without turning around. "I did." He finally turned, and his face wasn't surprised, only tired. "I knew you would." "You said Apex ruined your sister's chances at survival," Sophia said, voice trembling. "You said you hated what they did." "I do," Derek replied. "That's why I've spent the last 3 years acquiring enough leverage to take over the entire board." Sophia blinked. "You're buying Apex?" "No," he said. "I already bought them. Quietly, I control 51% of their voting shares." Her heart dropped. "I didn't want to destroy them from the outside," Derek explained. "That would have taken years and lawsuits and regulatory wars. I wanted to burn it down from within, restructure it, make it impossible for them to ever hurt another family again." She shook her head slowly. "Then why the lies? Why bury the contracts under Hope Rising?" His jaw clenched. "Because if the public knew I was using the foundation to choke Apex's blood supply, canceling old partnerships, replacing execs, rewriting policies, they'd think it was corrupt. They'd kill both before either could be redeemed." Sophia stared at him. Or maybe they'd see the truth, that this was never about hope, it was about power. Derek stepped closer. "It was about control." "Yes. But also justice. You don't fight giants with slingshots. You become a bigger one." She looked at him, and for the first time she didn't see the man who'd offered her a lifeline. She saw the man who would do anything, even lie, to win. "I trusted you," she said quietly. "I never asked you to," he replied. "But I hoped you would." Sophia didn't respond. She turned, walked out of his office, and didn't look back. That night she sat in her apartment, staring at the glowing screen of her laptop. Job portals, non-profit grant databases, advocacy forums. Derek Caldwell had built a machine to reform a monster, but Sophia didn't want to reform monsters anymore. She wanted to replace them, and she would. The logo was sketched by hand, just a small, imperfect drawing of 2 open hands cupping a house made of light. Underneath it, 3 words, True Haven Initiative. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't funded, but it was real, and it was hers. Sophia Daniels had walked away from the Caldwell Foundation with nothing but her conviction and her experience. That Monday, she registered her own nonprofit. She used her severance pay to rent a 2-room office above a laundromat and borrowed folding chairs from her church. She named it True Haven because she wanted it to be the kind of place her family had always needed. A safe place, honest, transparent, untangled from politics or corporate PR. It started small, a weekly food program, health screenings with a retired nurse who volunteered, story time for younger siblings while their parents met with social workers. No gala launches, no press releases, just purpose. She was exhausted, often broke, and barely scraping by. There were days she considered going back to waitressing just to pay rent. Her mother's hospital bills were still climbing. Lucas needed tutoring. Mia had begun skipping classes, claiming she was bored of trying. But even in the mess, something inside her refused to give in. Then came the hit. 3 months after launch, a major grant Sophia applied for, a $75,000 award from a local impact fund, was denied. The email was polite, vague, and generic. 2 days later, she found out the same grant had gone to a flashy new Hope Rising expansion program under the Caldwell Foundation's banner. It felt like a slap. Her work, her vision, packaged and repurposed by the same man who claimed he was fighting the same battle. Worse, an anonymous tipster emailed her screenshots of a leaked internal memo from Caldwell's PR division. Let's position Hope Rising as the gold standard in urban grassroots support, especially in contrast to spin-offs like True Haven. Message: integrity with infrastructure. Spin-off. That's what they thought of her. As if she was a side note, a discarded branch of Derek Caldwell's image campaign. Sophia didn't cry that night. She didn't scream. She went quiet, and then she went to work. She posted the screenshots to True Haven's website. Public, transparent, no commentary, just facts. Then she wrote a single line beneath them. We will not compete with machines. We will serve people. Within hours, the post was shared across activist circles. A journalist reached out. Then another. Then a podcast wanted to interview her. For the first time, Sophia spoke, not as a victim, not as a pawn, but as a founder. We're not the biggest, we're not the richest, but we're the ones sitting beside people when the doors close and the lights go out. That's what True Haven is, not a brand, a promise. The clip went viral, donations trickled in, local clinics called, a small tech firm offered free admin software. Something was shifting. Sophia's mother passed away quietly 2 weeks later. Her last words were a whisper, "Keep helping them, baby." That's who you are. Sophia buried her with a locket engraved with the True Haven logo. Then she went back to work, because grief couldn't stop a mission and doubt couldn't kill purpose. The storm didn't start with thunder. It started with a whisper, an anonymous Reddit post titled, "I work inside Apex Global. You need to hear this." At first, no one paid attention. Just another disgruntled employee venting about corruption, backroom deals, hush money. But then the thread was picked up by a watchdog account on Twitter. Then it hit local news, then national, and buried inside the thread, screenshots, internal memos, and recorded Zoom calls, was a detail that couldn't be ignored. The Caldwell Foundation is using Hope Rising as a front. Apex is still alive. Worse, it's profiting. Sophia saw it on her lunch break, one eye on her inbox and one hand clutching a half-eaten sandwich. As she read the leaks, her stomach turned. It confirmed what she feared. Derek hadn't dismantled Apex from within. He had merged it, refaced it, repackaged it in the glow of philanthropy. And now, people were paying attention. The backlash was swift. Within 48 hours, Derek Caldwell's name trended alongside words like fraud, whitewashing, and nonprofit laundering. Videos surfaced of him at charity galas, at press events for Hope Rising, standing beside children while his shadow stretched long behind them. In the Caldwell boardroom, panic ruled. Lawyers scrambled. Crisis managers spun talking points. Shareholders called emergency meetings, but none of them could fix the worst part. Public trust had shattered. The same media that once praised Caldwell for revolutionizing corporate charity now tore him down for manipulating optics to cover corporate decay. Employees began to resign, donors withdrew, and in the eye of it all, Derek sat in silence watching his empire burn. He hadn't spoken to Sophia in months, not since she walked out of his office with fire in her eyes. But now her name was everywhere, in news articles, in editorials, as the founder of the only grassroots organization to emerge from the scandal untouched. True Haven. People called her brave, independent, a whistleblower, though she'd never claimed that title. All she did was tell the truth, quietly, clearly, and now the world was listening. Derek stared at his phone, thumb hovering over her contact. He could call, apologize, try to explain. But what would he say? That she was right? That he'd let power twist a promise? That he didn't just lose control of Apex, he lost himself? He never pressed the button. He just sat there, alone in his penthouse, watching interview clips of Sophia, her voice steady, her hands folded, no bitterness in her words. Just focus. That week, Derek made a choice. He dismantled Apex Holdings piece by piece, not a rebrand, a liquidation. He called emergency board meetings, sold off divisions, and allocated final funds to reparations. Then he made a final move. He transferred what remained of the Hope Rising program, its assets, budget, and ongoing services to True Haven. No strings, no conditions. Just an email from his legal office with 6 words. She built it. Let her lead. Sophia read the message in stunned silence. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just closed her laptop, looked out the small office window, and whispered to herself, "It's about time." Because this wasn't just about exposing the giant, it was about replacing it with something honest, something earned. 2 years later, the old laundromat building that once housed True Haven's humble beginnings was gone, replaced by a bright 2-story community center nestled between a library and a health clinic on Chicago's west side. The walls were painted with murals, scenes of families, children laughing, nurses, teachers, even a depiction of Sophia's mother holding a clipboard with the True Haven logo shining behind her like a halo. Inside, the building buzzed with life. In one room, volunteers sorted donated backpacks for back-to-school season. In another, a free dental checkup clinic was underway. Upstairs, counselors met with first-generation college students about scholarship applications. And in the main event hall, all eyes were on Sophia Daniels. She stood behind a modest podium, microphone in hand, a soft smile on her face and strength in her posture. What began as a speech for a small fundraiser had transformed into something more, a celebration of resilience, of community, of truth. She looked out at the crowd, donors, volunteers, families who once came in for food and now sat proudly wearing True Haven t-shirts. Mia stood near the front row, now a freshman at the University of Illinois, beaming. Lucas had just been accepted into a mentorship program for coding. And behind them, leaning quietly against the wall in a simple black suit, was Derek Caldwell. Sophia didn't flinch when she saw him. She nodded once, cordial, distant. But there was no tension. Only history. She cleared her throat. I used to think survival was the goal. Getting through each day, keeping the lights on, keeping the people you love breathing. But survival isn't living. It's not dreaming. And it's definitely not enough. True Haven was never just a building. It was an answer to the question I used to ask at 2 a.m. while praying beside my mother's bed. How do we help people in a way that doesn't hurt them? How do we build something that doesn't break them later? She paused, eyes scanning the room. We didn't build this because we had money. We built it because we had pain, and we decided that pain wasn't going to end with us. It was going to become the beginning of something better. Applause followed, thunderous and sustained. As she stepped off the stage, a young girl approached her. 10 years old, wide eyes, clutching a folder filled with hand-drawn anatomy diagrams. "Miss Sophia?" she asked nervously. Sophia knelt to meet her eye level. "Hi, sweetheart. I just wanted to say, thank you. My mom said I'm going to be the first doctor in our family, and I think it's 'cause of you." Sophia's heart caught in her chest. She reached out and gave the girl a soft hug. "No," she whispered, "it's because of you. I just gave you a place to start." After the event, Sophia slipped away to the garden behind the building. It was quieter there, soft wind brushing the flowers, benches under the shade of elm trees. She heard footsteps behind her and turned. Derek stood a few paces away, hands in his pockets, his face older, less sharp than before, less invincible, more real. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "I wasn't sure you'd let me," he replied. They stood in silence for a moment, not uncomfortable, just unfinished. "I read every report about True Haven," Derek said quietly. "You built something I never could." Sophia looked down at the gravel path. "I didn't do it to compete." "I know," he nodded. "That's why it worked." He stepped forward and handed her a small envelope. Inside was a donation receipt, $10 million. "Transferred anonymously 2 months ago." She blinked. "Why not put your name on it?" she asked. "Because you deserve a clean foundation, not one tied to my mistakes." For the first time in a long time, Sophia smiled. A small, real smile. "I never hated you," she said. "I just couldn't follow you." "I know." He turned to leave, but she called out softly, "Thank you for finally listening." Derek paused, then nodded. "Thank you for never stopping." That night, Sophia sat in her office surrounded by drawings from kids, notes from single mothers, and photos of volunteers at food drives. She placed the donation envelope in a locked drawer and turned to her laptop. Her next goal, expand True Haven to 5 more cities. It wouldn't be easy. It never had been. But for the first time in years, she wasn't surviving anymore. She was leading. She was living. She was building something that would outlast all the lies, all the betrayals, all the giants. And somewhere deep inside, she knew her father would be proud.